Right now on a special live edition of the Powers That Be here on WHAS 11 Plus, we're in Washington giving you a tour of Mitch McConnell's empty U.S. Senate office. The senator says he's now in rehab after falling June 14th. As during this 30 minutes, we'll also be giving you the latest news on Kentucky's longest-serving senator, and we're going to be joined live by Louisville Democrat David Tandy and Republican Khalil Batchin right now on the Powers That Be.
Powers That Be, sponsored by Alex R. White, personal injury lawyers you can trust.
Hello, everybody, and so good to be with you for this special Powers That Be. I'm Doug Proffitt as we join you here on July 14th. It's now been 1 month since Mitch McConnell was put in the hospital, and then the wall of silence fell about his condition until this past Sunday. WHAS 11's political reporter Isaiah Kim Martinez has been in Washington covering the return of the U.S. Senate without McConnell since Monday. And Isaiah, let's talk about some of the late breaking developments you had today. You have talked to sort of the trifecta of Kentucky's top political leaders, Rand Paul, Thomas Massie, and Andy Barr. Do they agree that Mitch McConnell should be more forthcoming and now post a video showing that he can move forward in that office till January?
Well, Doug, their answers are kind of all across the map. If you ask Republican Thomas Massie, who, of course, it's worth noting, just lost his re-election bid, he actually agrees with Democratic Governor Andy Beshear that maybe a video or a press conference from the McConnell camp could help quell some of that speculation. But then you ask Congressman Andy Barr, who, of course, is backed by McConnell in his bid to replace him, to succeed him this coming January. He believes McConnell has essentially proven that he's going to serve his term till the very end and doesn't have to add any more. He does have that advantage, though, of saying that he's communicated back and forth with Mitch McConnell, which many others, namely Senator Rand Paul, cannot say that. Rand Paul told me today they have not had communications, at least since that photo came out from here in Washington, D.C., showing both Mitch McConnell and his wife, the former Transportation Secretary Elaine Chao. Rand Paul did tell me, though, that it wouldn't surprise him if he saw Senator McConnell back on the Senate floor in about a week or two. When I asked him whether he needs to do interviews or release some kind of video, he says, I think that's ultimately up to him.
This has really captivated the country, and we're going to talk a lot more about the governor coming up in just a second because he's turned up the heat. But I do want to ask you the basic question. Are Kentuckians back here at home going to miss out on any beneficial policies, especially because funding for SNAP and other social safety nets are on the table, and Mitch McConnell is not there to weigh in?
Well, Doug, it's a good question. Right now, the Senate GOP Democratic split is 53-47, but that was coming into this week with, of course, the passing of now the late Senator Lindsey Graham, Mitch McConnell missing in action for this week. Generally speaking, one or two votes can sway some real hot topic issues, big policy issues. But Senator Rand Paul at least doesn't believe a lot of those real consequential votes have come to be just yet this week. He believes that if there was something where the balance sort of relied on Senator Mitch McConnell, that he might come back quicker. He just doesn't believe he's missed anything super high profile just yet. We know defense spending is being discussed this week, but not final decisions. There's definitely more to come on that. And when there's something that really could sway one way or another, you get a sense Mitch McConnell wouldn't miss that.
Let's talk about the voting. You know, Senator McConnell cannot vote in the U.S. Senate while he is physically absent from the chamber, and he did not announce any future return date because the Senate requires senators to be present to cast a vote. In fact, the U.S. Senate has enforced this incredibly since 1798. So we want to lay that out for folks. It is true that he can't make a vote by proxy.
Right, and the voting process, Doug, can actually be very, very quickly. I mean, or can happen very quickly. When I interviewed Rand Paul today, he said, listen, I'll talk to you right after I cast this vote. I mean, he was in and out in less than a minute. It really doesn't take very long. You don't even have to necessarily even be on time, but you do have to be here in person. And that is obviously something, as a senator undergoes physical therapy to recover from that fall from now a month ago, is just not something that his camp says he can do at this point.
Okay, we're going to talk about the governor. Of course, Kentucky Governor Andy Beshear, a Democrat. Late today, we caught up with Andy Beshear in Frankfort to talk to him one-on-one, one day after he came out and said McConnell needed to give video proof that he's capable of moving forward. Here's what he told us.
I mean, if anybody out there, your viewers, were in the hospital for a month, they'd have to call their boss at work and explain what's going on, explain what happened and what their path is to coming back. And that's all I think the voters, who are the boss of all of us that are elected. I think there's some elected officials who don't view themselves as having a boss. We do. In this instance, it's the people of Kentucky. There's a section of Kentucky's Constitution that says the governor fills vacancies for offices that are elected statewide. Now, there may be a question about whether a federal office fits in that, but here's what I'd tell you. Before there was ever a statute about how a governor appoints a vacancy in the U.S. Senate, governors did it. Presumably under that section of the state constitution, in which case a law passed by the General Assembly can't violate or contradict it.
Well, Andy Beshear right there, just not taking his foot off the accelerator on this, even bringing up a potential review of the Kentucky Constitution. So let's talk political reality when it comes to the governor, Isaiah. He's been pushing McConnell for more information and to release that video. That drew a lot of national headlines when he said that, to prove whether Mitch McConnell can move forward. The governor has been attacked for making this political, but you've talked with Republicans in Washington. We've also talked with Republicans here in Kentucky. The view in Washington seems to be a much different tone.
It is, Doug. I mean, they are essentially brushing off what the governor is, outside of Thomas Massie, he's the exception, but brushing off what the governor is calling for here. They're essentially saying, listen, the words of Andy Barr, that it's beneath the office of the governor to speculate what could happen. In Barr's words, what will not happen, and that's the senator not returning. He believes he will. But to be fair to the governor as well, I mean, we have seen a lot of comments, not just in Kentucky, but across the country, whether it be on social media, online, even talking to people in person. There are some serious questions, not just about McConnell, but term limits, age, health to serve on Capitol Hill and to represent your constituents. And it's not a far cry or a far stretch to say the governor has been seeing a lot of that sort of outcry for more answers and has essentially lined his answer with those calls and those statements. But you cannot lose sight of the fact that the governor continues to be on the national stage, and this is certainly a national topic. Now, we actually got a tour of Senator Mitch McConnell's expansive office here on Capitol Hill. His staff took us through it. It's access that we've never gotten before, at least not our crew here. Take a look at some of the highlights here. We're given a tour of Senator Mitch McConnell's Capitol Hill expansive offices here in D.C., where his staff remains busy despite his absence. We get a peek behind the curtain, access to one of his main conference rooms where the walls of his rise to prominence tell the story. This conference room in Senator Mitch McConnell's office shows you a window into his entire career, starting from, of course, his run for Jefferson County Judge Executive to that high-profile Senate race in 1984 that led to this point, over a 40-year career in the U.S. Senate. This room right here, he would meet not just with his staff, but folks in Kentucky, statewide. And then this is really something that we're told the senator very much enjoys, the cartoons, the caricatures over the years. Some not necessarily kind to Senator McConnell. We're told he has a good sense of humor, likes to see the history of it all, the headlines, and then this spot right here. This is where Senator McConnell will normally sit. Of course, his staff is waiting on his return. It's now been more than 1 month since McConnell's last vote, and for the first time since that photo update from his team, I heard from Republican Senator Rand Paul, who told me outside the Senate chamber that he hasn't spoken to the 84-year-old since this weekend's statement.
I think that the expectation and the hope now is that he'll be back soon.
No video was allowed in the area I talked to Paul. I asked him what the impact is each day McConnell misses votes.
I think when there are important votes, he'll be back. I don't know that he's missed any important votes.
Are you confident he will return to the Senate floor?
His statement this week was he'll be back pretty soon, so I wouldn't be surprised if we see him back next week or two.
Well, let's talk a little bit more about that, the call for video evidence and proof that he can serve. McConnell himself said in the statement on Sunday, he said, quote, "You all know how folks of my generation often hesitate to share the vulnerability that comes with growing older, even in the public eye. I feel that same instinct." Now, he has shown in the past that he does things on his own time, not to cave into pressure. So there's a real chance we get a video or some other future evidence here, but on his own time.
Yeah, Doug, it's really since he was hospitalized, it's the first sense that we've gotten of that sort of conversation that we assumed had been had, and the fact that he has served for a long time. There is clearly pride for anybody on either side of the aisle, this sense of I can do the job. Like, no one tell me what I can or cannot do. Again, this is just me talking here, but this was the first sense we got that really did play a role in him not feeling like he had to show exactly what he was doing at any given moment. And that was notable, despite the fact that we talked about other details in that statement. That gave you a little bit of a window more into his thinking and what ultimately led to what some viewed as quite a bit of a delay in that response.
Okay, we had the photo actually analyzed. We want to talk a little bit more of that right now. Meantime, this is the photo everybody's talking about, this photo of Senator McConnell from a hospital bed beside his wife, Elaine Chao. It was meant to answer a month of speculation about his health. He was hospitalized on June 14th, exactly a month ago. Now he says he's in rehab. Instead, it kicked off a new argument over whether the photo itself is real, calling the photo fake, even AI generated. Today we talked with Al Tompkins, one of the country's most experienced trainers on visual journalism, and how to catch misinformation to forensically walk through this image.
The other is the direction of the light. So the light that's coming in from the window, which would be to his right, our left looking at it, is obviously window light. It's a white light, and it's coming in and it's casting shadows across his face, but more importantly, across the folds of the sheets and pillows, which are complicated. And AI often doesn't get that right.
Tompkins also said that the button shirt cuff on McConnell's left arm, a bandage just below that cuff, and bruising on the hand are consistent with a lengthy hospital stay. He says the bruising and bandage placement are the kind of small and glamorous detail a fabricated image typically wouldn't bother to include. So, Isaiah, this is day 2. The Senate went back to work on Monday, and of course the tragic passing of Lindsey Graham. So I'm sure it was a swirl of everybody in Washington trying to wrap their minds around these two figures who have been missing.
Yeah, certainly a grim start to the week. Returning to session here, you have one senator prominent who's missing, the other who has suddenly passed over the weekend. Certainly a big part of the conversation as they sort of start to get going for the next 4 weeks. Busy here on Capitol Hill. I do real quick before we go to break, Doug, I want to touch on that photo. There is we talked with a McConnell staffer today who did see that story that we aired yesterday in that interview, and I actually got a chance to see what they say is the original photo that was posted, and I actually looked at the metadata that was included on that, which essentially shows you where it was taken, when it was taken, all those details, and from what we can see, independently authenticated, us seeing it with our own eyes, that photo was taken on Sunday, July 12th. Doug.
Did you talk with the actual staffer who took the photo?
I did not, but
okay.
That was the original photo that I was given access to and shown.
All right, very good. Isaiah's going to come along again here during this 30-minute Powers That Be. Straight ahead, though, I'm going to be joined by Louisville Democrat David Tandy and Republican Metro Council member Khalil Batchet. We'll be discussing the calls for more evidence that McConnell can keep on serving. It's ahead on WHAS 11 Plus right after this.
Hi, I'm Sue, distracted driver.
I'm attorney Alex White. If you're injured, visit SueDistractedDriver.com.
Powers That Be, sponsored by Alex R. White. Personal injury lawyers you can trust.
To give you a sense of the breadth of Senator McConnell's presence here on the third floor of the Russell Senate building, all these rooms, these offices, are his. They are for meetings with staff, with constituents, and quite the view, by the way. From the balcony, you see the Capitol straight ahead, and if you look to your right, you know that building, the Washington Monument, right there, here in Washington, D.C. Fun fact, too, right beneath us, Senator Rand Paul's office.
Just part of our coverage from Washington, D.C., and we welcome you back to our studio. I'm joined now live with Louisville Democrat David Tandy, who's also our longtime Democratic analyst on WHAS 11. And we welcome Republican Khalil Batchin. He represents a large section of southwest Jefferson County with Metro Council number 25. Mitch McConnell started as a local politician here, guys. You both have been in those roles. You're still in it. He was the Jefferson County Judge Executive in '78. As Judge Executive, he represented where you sit, in far southwest Jefferson County. Is he still an influence in that part of the county as you watch all this unfold?
I think he's a massive influence. I think his institutional knowledge and his leadership has proven that whether you agree with him politically or not, he's continuously showing up for Kentuckians and in southwest Jefferson County as well as Jefferson County as a whole.
David, you were the former head of the Metro Council. McConnell was in Louisville a lot. You were around him in his realm. When you watch all this unfolding up there, do you believe he'll return to the U.S. Senate from what you know about Mitch McConnell?
Well, I think just from a human perspective, we're all praying for a speedy recovery and that we want to see him, back in good health and in the ability to be able to finish out his term as Kentucky's senior senator. So we'll wish for the best and we'll kind of go from there. It was interesting, when you were talking about earlier in your segment about, with whether or not the senator is there or not, and what does that, how does that affect Kentuckians? A lot of it will depend upon how he would have voted on particular pieces of legislation that are before the Senate right now. You've got the reauthorization of the defense spending bill that's there. So that's a big deal for the folks at Fort Knox and Fort Campbell and the communities there, they're in. We've got the Senate has not passed the expansion of the health care benefits under the Obamacare plan. That the House passed a 3-year extension of that. The Senate has not taken a vote on that yet. That affects over 1.5 billion Kentuckians who are on those type of plans. And we can go down the list with other things as well.
I'm going to ask you both this because we've asked this to the top leaders in Washington. Do you believe McConnell is at the stage now where he does need to convince everybody that he can continue to serve by doing an independent interview or a news conference?
Look, I think, Doug, that he has proven to the Commonwealth that he's a great servant. He's brought $65+ billion to the Commonwealth. He's done his job. I don't think we need to get into the realm of political theater and show that we have to do an interview and then that interview turns into a conversation similar to the picture. Oh, is that a deep fake, or is that AI generated, or why is he not breakdancing, or whatever the case may be. We don't need that. Like the senator is 84 years old. We're praying for his recovery. The doctors have cleared him, and they're not cleared him, but have cleared for rehab, and he is going through the process. I think he'll be back, as Senator Paul said. He'll be back within a week or so, as God willing.
David, do you believe the Kentucky governor raises a good question, saying we're at the point where we at least need to see that he can continue to serve until January?
Yeah, well, I mean, I would agree with that because, again, as I was alluding to earlier, there are key votes that are getting ready to take place. Depending upon how the senator would have voted on those pieces of legislation, it could have a direct impact on the people of Kentucky. In addition to that, now, the numbers that are in the Senate are small as well. You've got right now, I think it's 54-47 in terms of Republican and Democrat. You've got, then, of course, that's including Lindsey Graham's sister being sworn in as his replacement now, and including Senator McConnell still being in those numbers. He's not there to vote. The number goes down to 56. Then you've got a couple of other Republicans, either a John Cornyn or a Bill Cassidy of Louisiana, who now don't necessarily have to tote the party line because they were primaried out. Those votes could go away. So then, if you're Leader Thune, you're almost on the same, quietly, you're on the same side as Governor Beshear, where you're like, we kind of like to know and try to figure out what's going to happen next.
Khalil, do you worry that, go ahead, you can respond.
No, I think, to what you're saying, David, is I think we have the strongest leadership possible right now with Senator McConnell as a senior senator, 42 years in there, the institutional knowledge. No matter if God forbid something was to happen, no speculations, but for someone to come in as an appointed senator and or in the short-term interim, he has more leadership and more influence now than he would if any junior senator was to come in, no matter what party.
Do you watch things closely in Washington and how McConnell operates and its impact there on Southwest Jefferson County?
Yeah, I think his impact is very vital to Southwest Jefferson County with what he's working on now in appropriations and things at the federal level for money for Jefferson Memorial Forest and for road infrastructure money. We've got the Fort Knox right down the street and things that we are moving forth there, I think is very impactful. And I think he's got a lot of work still to do, and I think he is up for the task to make that happen.
Republican Khalil Batchen, representing Metro Council District 25, thank you very much for your time. And longtime Democrat David Tandy, the former Metro Council president, we appreciate you both on this special edition of Powers That Be. We'll continue right after this, going back to Washington as our coverage is exclusive from the nation's capital. As the Senate reconvenes, here's a look at some of the top issues coming up for a vote. The 2027 national defense budget. If the Senate authorizes $1.5 trillion in defense spending, it will be the largest defense budget in U.S. history. Also on the calendar, appropriations for social safety nets. After 2025's government shutdown, a set budget for Medicaid, SNAP, and other programs only solidified until the end of September this year. Isaiah is joining me again here live from Washington, there at the U.S. Capitol. Isaiah, our guest here today, brought up some of this very important legislation. So where does that stand? I know you've been talking to some of the key players there. What are they saying about Mitch McConnell's actual role in any of these big votes?
Yeah, Doug, you get the sense there is time for a lot of these big ticket issues. We know that a looming government shutdown would not be in play until September 30th. We know that Democrats have been willing to dig their heels in the past, but that is still a couple months from now. So if Senator McConnell were not to be here for, say, another several weeks and come back and talk to us then, as of right now, it seems Republicans are confident that they could move forward on their policies until then. Doug.
All right, for Isaiah Kim Martinez reporting live from Washington, I'm Doug Proffitt here. Thank you very much for joining us on this special edition of the Powers That Be. We'll have more right after this. Despite all the drama, the November election to replace the longtime senator is still on and in full swing. And the question of whether this controversy will impact voters at the polls this fall is still up in the air. In May, current U.S. Representative Andy Barr beat out former Kentucky Attorney General Daniel Cameron in the Republican Senate primary. Barr received President Donald Trump's endorsement, which allowed him to win in a landslide. A noticeable accomplishment of Congressman Barr helped create the Paycheck Protection Program during the COVID-19 pandemic, which delivered forgivable loans to small businesses to stay open. As senator and a conservative Republican, Barr's campaign says his priorities would be in national security, reviving coal in Kentucky, and increasing police budgets. On the Democratic side, the wild card won it in the primary. Charles Booker of Louisville, a progressive Democrat, wins his primary against three other moderate liberals. Booker has served in the Kentucky House of Representatives and is the founder of the grassroots advocacy organization From the Hood to the Holler. Keep in mind, another very important date coming up for you is the Fancy Farm Political Picnic. That is Saturday, August 1st, and it begins actually the Friday night before that. We'll be covering it on WHAS 11 News, and look for more discussions on the Powers That Be.
Powers That Be, sponsored by Alex R. White, personal injury lawyers you can trust.